Good evening, I'm Katerina Georgieva. This is CBC Windsor News. Thanks for being with us. Tonight, the Bank of Canada cuts interest rates, plus a look at how our city could deal with homeless encampments. But first, a boost to the EV battery plant. Millions of dollars from the federal government will help train hundreds of workers to move into the sector. Dale Molnar has more.
This is the virtual reality cave at the Invest Windsor Essex Automobility and Innovation Center. Technology similar to this will be used to train people to learn how to put something like a battery module together virtually. Invest Windsor Essex has partnered with a tech firm and the federal government on the $3.8 million program. Invest Windsor Essex interim CEO Joe Consalves says it will train 400 people to be able to do a number of manufacturing jobs at the Nexstar Energy battery plant here locally and its feeder plants.
So what it'll be is a company could be in Korea. We do a twinning of that machine, and the employee will be in the AIC cave where they will have virtual wear on, and they'll actually be training on the equipment and an exact twin of that equipment.
Windsor-Tecumseh MP Eric Kuzmerchik says as long as someone has been in the workforce for 3 years in Canada and can legally work in Canada, they can apply for the training.
So you think about people that might be laid off for a second, looking for that opportunity, or you look at folks that might want to change the career that they're on currently, or they're in precarious job positions. This is an opportunity to get trained up and to land that amazing job at the battery plant that pays well, union job, good benefits, and part of this exciting new future that we're on with electric vehicles.
You know, it could be transferring, for example, from an existing tool and die factory that they might have got laid off, or could be a technical person, could be, so it's really that sort of midlife type of person that's looking to sort of transition over to this type of industry.
People who are interested in the training can sign up online at webatteryboost.com. After the virtual training, the trainees will go to the battery plant for hands-on training with real equipment. The virtual training will take place at the Invest Windsor Essex Automobility and Innovation Center, and the program runs from February of next year to March of 2026. Invest Windsor Essex hopes this will just be the first of many people who will be trained this way. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Windsor.
How should City Council deal with encampment sites in Windsor? That's been a point of discussion at City Hall. And as Chris Ensing reports, leaders could look to the East Coast for answers.
These encampments here, where people are living inside of tents, are a reminder of how difficult it is right now in the city. And council has to make a choice on where they should focus their efforts, either breaking these encampments up or supplying them with essential services. Right now, it's extremely difficult to force people to leave public spaces. A previous court ruling stopped cities from removing tents if there's not enough emergency shelter beds for people to stay in. Windsor's mayor wants the province to override that ruling because he doesn't think people should be sleeping outside. Marion Overholt is the former head of Windsor's Community Legal Aid Clinic. She told council that even with those powers, the problem would remain.
It's magical thinking that you can wipe out encampments and the homeless will disappear. You don't have the capacity in your shelters, and so people will find new places to stay.
Windsor has more people who say they sleep outside most nights than there are emergency overnight shelter beds. That's true in many Canadian cities, including Halifax. But the approach there is something Overholt says the city could learn from. These encampment sites are designated spaces where people can live in tents if there's no shelter space. There's access to clean water, bathrooms, and a code of conduct for people living on the site. In early November, the city had 5 designated sites for about 100 people.
Staying in tents is bad for everybody. It's bad for the people who have to live in them, and they're also bad for the surrounding community. And so if they're going to end up there anyway, if that's truly the only option, then let's create spaces where they know that they're allowed to be.
Halifax's mayor tried to end this approach last week, but was defeated by council. It's also something that the Premier of Nova Scotia has called completely nuts. Chauvin calls it a band-aid solution in a crisis. Overholt says if members of council are considering using their power to break these sites up, they should also consider the alternative of supporting them before making a decision.
City Council's job as the local government is to help develop those guidelines and look at the other experiences of other communities and see what has worked and what hasn't worked.
City staff are prioritizing a report with options for council to consider when it comes to encampments and preventing homelessness. As for Premier Doug Ford's promise to try and tighten up the rules around encampments and give cities more powers to break them up, well, he's promising urgent action, but it's not clear when exactly that will happen. Chris Ensing, CBC News, Windsor.
Colin Kennedy is with us now for a quick look at weather. And Colin, the temperatures are on their way down into the evening, so give us the latest.
Yes, it's the big plunge as that cold air, Arctic air is moving in. You can see how it's overtaken prairie provinces below -20 in Saskatchewan, almost -30 in Winnipeg, and it's not going to get that cold here. However, we are going to be experiencing a real cool down. Just hanging on now. No negative in front of it. It was hanging on at freezing. But here's where we're going. Overnight tonight, down to -8. But as the winds pick up and we do get into some really blustery conditions, we're talking about it feeling like -18 with some flurries, -6. The high tomorrow is still going to feel like about -14.
Okay, thanks for that call. We'll check back in later on. In other news, the Bank of Canada has cut its key interest rate again. It's going down 50 basis points and now sits at 3.25%. The governor of the Bank of Canada explains the move.
Inflation is back to the 2% target, and lower interest rates are beginning to pass through to stronger spending by households. But the economy remains in excess supply, and the growth outlook now appears softer than we projected in October.
The central bank indicated any further cuts may be more gradual, and it says the possibility of tariffs under U.S. President-elect Trump represents what it calls a major new uncertainty. I'm Katerina Georgieva, the host of CBC Windsor News at 6, and I'm here with mortgage broker Rasha Ingrata to talk about the Bank of Canada cut to interest rates. We are down 50 basis points. So tell me, what is your reaction to that?
It was actually a thumbs up reaction. Listening to the 50 basis points, we've been hoping for that all along, but when we heard it, it was like jumping up and down for joy.
So what does this mean to people who either want to get a mortgage or who currently are sitting on a mortgage? How big of an impact will this have?
So 50 basis points means the Bank of Canada right now, the prime rate is at 5.95 as of yesterday. Today, it's going to drop to 5.45. So if you have a discount on prime, it affects variable rate mortgages, lines of credit, any product that depends on prime. So if you have a mortgage at prime minus 1%, your rate will be 4.45.
Up next, parents and union reps continue to push back against recent cuts at the Public School Board. They rallied outside last night's Greater Essex County District School Board meeting, protesting the cuts, particularly around the RISE special education program.
That program will disappear, and that's tragic. We heard a parent today who said that program changed her child, and she has no idea what's going to replace it next year. And so it's for those kinds of kids and those voices that we're trying to amplify tonight, to let the trustees know that their decision has ripple effects. It's not just a decision to save money. It's a decision that ultimately will change kids' lives and their trajectory.
Educators united! We'll never be defeated! The community united! We'll never be defeated!
About 150 people gathered before the meeting began. Now, in addition to special education funding, some other positions like social workers and psychologists have also been cut. Parents say all of this will hurt their kids. They are urging the board to reconsider. The board is facing a $6.4 million shortfall this year. Meanwhile, during the meeting, trustee Gail Hatfield was re-elected as board chair for the coming year. The two sides in the Canada Post strike appear further apart than ever. The company released a statement today saying the union's latest offer would add billions of dollars in unsustainable fixed costs. Stuck in the middle are the many people anxiously waiting for essential documents, including social services checks and passports. Alexander Silberman reports.
My package was delivered to this very postal location.
Yi Ching Huang tracked her passport to this shuttered Toronto post office. It's stuck inside with no way to get it, and a trip for her wedding reception is just weeks away.
Yeah, it's devastating at this point.
Huang is a permanent resident with a Chinese passport that contains visas that are challenging to replace. And there's no resolution in sight after the latest proposal by the union, delivered Monday, was described as a setback by Canada Post.
I feel sorry for the workers. They have to go on strike at this point of year, but then it's also very frustrating for people like us waiting for important documents.
While Huang is currently out of luck, there are some options for Canadian passport holders. Service Canada has held about 185,000 passports since December 1st. They're available for pickup for an extra $20. But it's not just passports.
We think that all options should be in place.
While some federal benefits, including the Canada Pension Plan, are still being delivered, most provincial program checks need to be picked up. That's troubling to this advocate.
Certainly for people who have mobility issues or distance issues, it becomes a real barrier to getting what are absolutely necessary benefits for survival purposes.
Canada Post says mail stuck at distribution centers like this one will be delivered on a first-in, first-out basis when operations resume. But it adds Canadians will continue to feel the impact of the strike long after it's over. Alexander Silberman, CBC News, Regina.
For anyone with a loved one who struggles with dementia or Alzheimer's, you look for anything that can keep them engaged or might bring them some comfort. As CBC's Jennifer LaGrassa reports, a number of people in our community are working together to do just that.
People with dementia sometimes feel the need to fidget, so playing with something in their hands really helps when it comes to brain stimulation. Remembering what her own mom went through, one local woman was inspired to make fidget aprons for others with dementia.
My mother died in 2010 with Alzheimer's, and she was always fidgeting.
Earlier this year, Morley Cook heard of a group north of London that was making fidget aprons, so she decided to bring the initiative here. This group of women are the Windsor Essex Fidget Makers, bonded together by their desire to help those struggling with dementia.
I love sewing, and I think everybody here loves sewing, and we're doing something for the community too.
I'm pretty sure I can fix it.
Along with volunteers and donated materials, the shop the group is working out of is also being lent to them.
I'm associated with the Alzheimer's group. My mother-in-law was involved there for a number of years. And so when they called me, I thought, this is a way for me to give back.
While the group at the shop pieces the aprons together, across town, the Riverside Girl Guides are also offering some helping hands, along with their eye for fashion.
So my first one was just random, and my second one was like all green vibes. I chose it because I feel like it's like a country vibe. No, it's like preppy vibes and like pink. The apron I did first was like a blue denim one. I like matching things. All of my outfits are very matchy.
For Josephine Donnelly, this is about so much more.
My grandma had dementia, so I know how hard it will be, and anything I can do to make anyone's lives better I'll be willing to.
What started as a solo passion project has now turned into a community-wide effort, with Morley Cook giving out 40 completed fidget aprons to local nursing homes and many more already on the way. If you'd like to pick one up or donate supplies, you can reach out to the Alzheimer's Society of Windsor and Essex County. Jennifer LaGrassa, CBC News, Windsor.
If you've walked along the Detroit River lately, you've likely noticed it's low. The culprit is a seiche. It's a natural phenomenon that happens when strong winds push water from one end of a basin to another. Windsor's harbor master says he's seeing things that he has not seen in a decade.
So I'm seeing areas that we haven't seen the bottom of the river since 2010, 2011. They're now exposed. Fish habitats we installed years ago that were underwater are now exposed.
The low levels have also exposed other less pleasant things like garbage, including tires, plastic bottles, even fish flies. Let's take a live look outside there. Today, definitely colder than yesterday, and tomorrow, even colder still. Stay with us. After the break, we will have international news for you. Welcome back. Just days after the toppling of the Assad regime, Syria's transitional prime minister is calling on the millions who fled the civil war to come back home. But the unrest in the country is far from over. CBC News senior international correspondent Margaret Evans has more from Damascus.
Well, Israel has said it is moving into, there's a buffer zone between the Syrian Golan Heights and the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights, and there's a buffer zone that has been manned by peacekeeping forces over the years. Israel has moved into that area and said that it's doing so to protect itself. It's worried, it says, about the potential of militant groups who still exist in pockets in Syria getting a hold of the big weaponry, the arsenal that the Syrian government had, including chemical weapons. They have been striking targets in Syria again and again and again, including the Syrian Navy along the coastline. The other big concern is the fighting in the north between Turkish-backed opposition groups and U.S.-backed Kurdish groups. Turkey believes that those Kurdish groups harbor separatists from Turkey who want to work towards Kurdish separatism or independence in Turkey. It is not. These two groups have clashed for a number of years. The Kurds have autonomy in the east, the south, the northeast of the country. They're going to want to hang on to that. They have been very instrumental in the defeat of ISIS, and as I said, they do have U.S. backing. We did hear that the clashes in one of the cities that had been held by the Kurds, Manbij, there's a ceasefire there, but it seems to involve the Kurds withdrawing. And Kurdish people in Aleppo, in other parts north of Aleppo, and armed fighters there did leave when the Turkish-backed opposition groups started to move their way. So, it's a reminder that there are a lot of uncertainties still in this country.
That's CBC's Margaret Evans reporting from Damascus. Meanwhile, Palestinian officials are reporting dozens of deaths in Israeli airstrikes today in northern Gaza. Israel says it was targeting Hamas militants in the area. CBC's Tom Perry has more from Jerusalem.
The UN Special Rapporteur on the occupied Palestinian territories once again has some harsh words for Israel.
I'm burdened by having to yet again explain the unbelievable amount of suffering and grief the Palestinian people have endured in the last year for crimes that member states have the clear responsibility of preventing, stopping and punishing, among which is genocide.
Israel has consistently denied committing genocide in its war in Gaza. It says that it's Hamas that launched a genocidal attack on October 7th, and it says Israel has been defending itself within the bounds of international law. Now, there has been a lot going on in Gaza today. Palestinian health officials say that 33 people were killed in northern and central Gaza, the majority of those in Beit Lahia, where it says 22 people, including women and children, were killed when the IDF hit a multi-story building. Now, the The IDF, the Israel Defense Force, told Reuters it was targeting Hamas, operating near a hospital there, and it disputes the numbers. We're also hearing reports today out of Nuseirat, where Palestinian Civil Emergency Service there says at least 7 people were killed in airstrikes. So on the other side, we're hearing about 4 rockets coming out of Gaza. That doesn't happen as often anymore, but 4 rockets being fired out of Gaza, 2 being taken out by air defense, 2 landing in an open field, causing no injuries. The IDF, it's reported, has been telling people in the areas from where those rockets were launched to evacuate, and that often means that more airstrikes are on the way. Tom Perry, CBC News, Jerusalem.
On a lighter note, here is something you might not know. Poinsettias are red and Christmassy, but the plant is originally from Mexico, and its Spanish name translates to Christmas Eve. Producers in Mexico City use a traditional method to grow them on floating gardens, and customers come from far away to buy the plants from greenhouses near canals. It's a local tradition to adorn homes, churches, and even roads with this sea of red during the holidays. And the English name comes from Joel Robert Poinsettia. He was the first U.S. ambassador to Mexico who took the plant back to his home state of South Carolina in the 1820s. Tomorrow on Windsor Morning, the impact of weather on the Gordie Howe Bridge. That's on 97.5 FM. Stay with us. Colette Kennedy is back with us now for more on weather. And Colette, we are anticipating that Arctic air coming through, but we can't complain too loudly because at least we're not dealing with minus 28 degrees like the folks in Winnipeg.
Yeah, that's right. Now we're going to have a wind chill. It's going to make it feel pretty cool, but still, yeah, you could drop it twice as cool to get to what they're experiencing in Winnipeg. And that's just the current temperature, not even where they're falling to. A few hours after midnight last night, we were still around 3 degrees, but then the slide began. It's been gentle thus far. So we're just sitting here, see all the zeros, freezing mark all the way to London, up towards Sarnia, dipping below for Goderich and Kitchener area, by the way, in a blowing snow advisory, but it doesn't end there. I'll get into all that in just a moment. The wind's starting to pick up, but this is only the beginning. They'll really be getting stronger. At times, some of those wind gusts could be over 60 or 70 kilometers an hour. And with that, yes, we get the flurries kind of coming through. These are lake effect coming off of Lake Michigan. We had such a mild fall. You know, there's a lot of open waters around on the Great Lakes, not dealing with frozen, and so able to pick up all of that moisture when these winds come in here, and that's exactly what's happening. Now, further east, yeah, a lot of moisture. That's from the Gulf, so still mild there and heavier rains, but we have to watch this situation, especially if you're doing, it's not so bad for southwestern Ontario, but if you're planning on doing any traveling or need to do any traveling in terms of the road conditions here over next 48 hours, essentially. So a blizzard warning actually in place, the Blue Mountains stretching back towards Goderich. In that area, you know, near whiteout conditions at times and lasting for a long duration. And then the snow squall warning in a widespread area. And then there's that blowing snow I mentioned and snow squall watch and the blue winter weather travel advisories. I mean, it's all there, all over the gamut with this. And then watch as I move this forward in time, that it's not just overnight tonight, through the day on Thursday. Yes, it continues. The machines keep pumping, and even into Friday. So there will be areas here, some that were hit so hard recently, Bracebridge, Gravenhurst, that could pick up another 80 centimeters or so of snow. See, you can get into the darker blues as I roll this forward in time, taking it into Friday. Winds, yes, picking up here over this next little while. So definitely something for us to be watching for, and just watching out for the next couple of days, dressing appropriately, being prepared, because the wind chills will be even more significant than those temperatures are going to be.
All right, we shall bundle up. Thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
And thanks to you all for watching. We'll see you back here tomorrow.
Good night.